What is going on, everyone? This is Eric coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and today we are going to discuss the Adam Jones trade, which occurred back on February 8th, 2008. Now, this original trade was between the Seattle Mariners and the Baltimore Orioles, and it saw Seattle acquire a starting pitcher who they hoped would help shore up their rotation in exchange for 5 assets. How did this trade work out? We'll start by looking at Seattle's side, as they would get starting pitcher Erik Bedard. Now, right off the bat, he was named the opening day starter for the 2008 season for the Mariners. And he had a solid start to the season for the Seattle, but by mid-July, he was experiencing stiffness in his shoulder, which forced him to miss the rest of the season. 2009 was pretty similar, as he played well for the first 4 months, but then a shoulder injury would strike, and this time it was a torn labrum, which ended his season early. Now, he would miss all of the 2010 season due to suffering setbacks to his shoulder, and then he had a decent return in 2011, but he got traded mid-season. All said and done, he went 15-14 for the Mariners with a 3.31 ERA. Now, he was traded in a 3-team trade alongside the LA Dodgers and the Boston Red Sox. So, basically, you know how my color coding system works. So, if the player's listed is in blue, he came from Seattle. If he's listed in red, he came from Boston. If he's listed in purple, he came from the Dodgers. So we're going to look at the Seattle Mariners Hall first. So they got a pair of players here. The first of which was third baseman Ching-Hsien Cheung. Now, Cheung would spend a year and a half in the minors before walking as a free agent. The next player that they got was outfielder Trayvon Robinson. Now, Cheung came from Boston and Robinson came from LA. I probably should have said that, but now, Robinson, he would spend a year and a half in the organization. Over that time, he would appear in 90 games at the MLB level. He would hit .215 with 5 homers before he was traded to the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for shortstop Robert Adino. So, Adino, he would hit a .184 across 29 games before he was released. Not the greatest haul for Seattle, all things considered. But Bedard, he was solid were it not for that shoulder stiffness problem, the shoulder issues. Who knows? So next we have the Baltimore Orioles, of course, the big team in this trade. So they got 5 players in return for Bedard. How did they do? So the first player we're going to look at is the man in the title, outfielder Adam Jones. Now he would step in as the starting center fielder for Baltimore in his first year. And he proved to be a solid acquisition, as he would hit a career-high 7 triples, along with 9 homers and 10 stolen bases. Now, he would start off the 2009 season strong, but he ended the year on the IL due to a sprained ankle. He had a solid 2010 season, as he would hit .284 with 19 homers. One of these home runs was an inside-the-park home run. Now, this is a fun one, and I'm sure you remember it. This was the play where the Nationals outfielder, Nyjer Morgan, spiked his glove down in disgust, not realizing the ball was still in the park. So it shouldn't have been a homer. It should have been maybe a double. But Nyjer Morgan spiked his glove down, walked away from the ball, and Adam Jones took advantage of that. I didn't realize it was Adam Jones who was involved in that play until I was doing research for this video. So that's a fun one. He had a solid year in 2011, as he would actually hit 25 homers, and he led the league in sacrifice flies with 12. However, he also led outfielders in errors with 8. Now, he would appear in all 162 games during the 2012 season, and he had one of his better seasons, hitting a career-high .287 with 32 homers and a career-best 16 stolen bases. He would follow that up with another very strong campaign in 2013, when he would hit .285 with a career-high 33 homers and 108 RBIs. Now, he had another very strong campaign in 2014, as he would hit .281 with 29 homers. And he had a solid year in 2015, hitting .269, and then he continued to drop a little bit in 2016 when he hit .265 with 29 homers. And then he had another high average season in 2017, as he got his average back up to .285 and he hit 26 homers. In 2018, he would hit .281 with 15 homers. Now, after 2018, he would walk as a free agent. All said and done, though, he is one of the better, more consistent hitters in Baltimore history. He was a 5-time All-Star, a 4-time Gold Glove winner, and a 1-time Silver Slugger. Pretty good. If it was a 1-for-1 trade, it'd still be clear that Baltimore won, but Baltimore got 4 more players, all pitchers, in this deal. The next we're going to look at is relief pitcher George Sherrill. Now, Sherrill would win the closing role in his first year in Baltimore, and he played decently. He had a solid start to the 2009 season, but the team decided to trade him away. He had a 3.87 ERA with 51 saves over a year and a half, and he was a one-time All-Star. Now, he gets traded to the LA Dodgers in exchange for a pair of players, the first of which was pitcher Steve Johnson. Now, Johnson would spend 7 seasons with the organization, but most of that time was spent in the minors. He would appear in 27 games at the major league level over that time, and he had an ERA of 4.25 with a 5-1 record before he was allowed to walk. The second player that they got was third baseman Josh Bell, not the third baseman, first baseman that's currently playing in the majors. So, Bell would appear in 79 games over 2 years for Baltimore, hitting at the Mendoza line at 200 before he was traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks for relief pitcher Mike Belfiore. Now, Mike Belfiore, he was something. So he would literally throw 1 1/3 innings in a single outing at the MLB level. He got shelled, and then he got waived by the team. Not the best. Could have been worse. So now back up to the original trade. There's still 3 players to look at. The next of which will be relief pitcher Kim Micolio. Now Micolio, he spent most of his 3 years with the team in the minors. He did make 23 appearances in the major league level for Baltimore. During that time, he had an 0-3 record with a 4.32 ERA before he was traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks in exchange for 2 players. The first of which was first baseman, third baseman, Mark Reynolds. Now Reynolds, he did exactly what Baltimore wanted. He hit .221 over 2 years, but more notably, he had 60 homers and a unfortunately high 355 strikeouts. He actually led the league in strikeouts one of those 2 years. But then he would walk. Baltimore at this time, though, they needed a high power hitter. That's why they made this deal. Now, they also got catcher John Hester in this trade. And Hester, he spent 2011 in the minors before he left as a free agent. So there's still a couple players we have to look at. Next will be starting pitcher Chris Tillman. Now, Tillman was called up in mid-2009. And he would bounce between the minors and the majors for his first 4 years with the team as he struggled with inconsistency and failed to go deep in games. He had a solid breakout season in 2013 and built on it in 2014. Now, he had a rough season in 2015, but he bounced back in 2016, although that season did end early due to injury. He struggled in 2017 and 2018 before he was designated for the assignment and then walked as a free agent. He was still a one-time All-Star, but you have to remember, Baltimore, every team gets an All-Star, so. And the last player that we have to look at is starting pitcher Tony Butler, who never got above single A. So now we have a secondary time when Baltimore was involved in the trade, and this was where they got outfielder Trayvon Robinson, and Robinson spent 1 year in the minors before walking. Pretty minor trade with him. So now we have all the other secondary teams to look at. We will start by looking at the LA Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers, we'll look at this trade first just because it's right here. So in the second trade, I guess, that they were involved in, they got relief pitcher George Sherrill, and Sherrill was electric in his first half season, pitching to a .65 ERA in a setup role. However, he struggled mightily in his second year before leaving the team. All said and done, he had a 4.08 ERA in LA. That right there should tell you how bad his second year was. Now, the other trade they were involved in was a 3-team trade alongside Boston and Seattle, where they got 3 players, all of whom came from the Boston Red Sox. So the first one we'll look at is catcher Tim Fedorowicz. Now, Fedorowicz, he spent the first year and a half mostly in the minors, but then he became LA's backup catcher in 2013. He would spend most of 2014 in the minors before he ends up getting traded away. We will not be discussing that. He did hit a .194 over 89 games for the team. So, not the best, not the worst. The next player we'll have to look at is starting pitcher Stephen Fife. Now, Fife made 18 appearances, 16 of which were starts over 3 years for the Dodgers. He had a 3.66 ERA. Now, his 2014 season ended early due to Tommy John, and then the Dodgers decided, you know what, we're not going to deal with this, so they let him walk as a free agent. The last player the Dodgers got was relief pitcher Juan Rodriguez, and he was released after a year and a half in the minors. Next, we have the Boston Red Sox, who got a pair of players, both of whom came from the Seattle Mariners. So the first one we're going to look at is, of course, starting pitcher Erik Bedard. Now, he would go 1-2 with a 4.03 ERA across 8 starts in a single season before walking as a free agent. They also got relief pitcher Josh Fields, who would spend half a season in the minors, but then he was picked and selected and taken away in the Rule 5 draft. The last team we have to look at is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were involved in 2 separate trades. The first one saw them get third baseman Josh Bell, and Josh Bell would appear in 21 games for the team, hitting a .173 before he was DFA'd and allowed to walk. The last trade saw them net a pair of relievers, the first of which was Cam Micolio, who would appear in 6 games for the team, having an ERA of 6.75 before he was demoted and eventually cut. The last of which was relief pitcher David Hernandez, and Hernandez was a solid, reliable arm coming out of the bullpen for 4 years for the team. He did spend time as a closer during 2011 and a bit in 2012. However, he missed all of the 2014 season after having to undergo Tommy John, and then he would walk after the 2015 season. All said and done, he had a 3.54 ERA, a 13-17 record, and 17 saves. So now we get to the fun part where we discuss every team's WARs. So first things first, of the main 2 teams, we know who won. Baltimore, they had a 44.3 WAR. Seattle, on the flip side, they had a 3.6 WAR. As for the secondary teams, the Dodgers, they had a WAR of 1 on the nose. Not the best, but it could have been worse. Boston had a .2. And lastly, the Diamondbacks had a .7. Now, this isn't the most important trade in Major League history, but at the same time, we did see Baltimore get Adam Jones. And like I said, he was one of the better, more consistent hitters for the middle of the 2010s, definitely. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good rest of your day.